Oh man. Hey. Wow, the angle of this is you can all I might switch this around a little bit so you get a little less of whiteboard coon. Hello. How are we? I feel very underprepared this morning because I am in the process of uploading a process of processing a video for my channel, as well as I did not decide to wear any makeup today. I just threw on some lipstick because I'm getting ready to do something for another video that will require me to not have makeup on. So it's just today is like a day of preparation. And I'm like, but I want to talk about Pluto and Monster and Urasawa. So here we are. But hello, Sunspots. Hello, Shimayama. I'm so excited to see you all. I've got some notes. I'm super excited. I've got a character tier to talk about. I have another monster pulled up, which is the wiki page for that. Hello. I originally thought I was gonna have time to read another monster, and that didn't happen. So we're gonna kind of go through it today in this video, and then I'll be able to post it to Patreon later, so people can kind of watch me go through it and my general thoughts about that. But hello, I hope you all are doing good. Hope everybody's doing all right. I'm excited to talk about Pluto and Monster. If you are not familiar with Pluto and Monster, there's going to be spoilers. So hope you're ready for that. I also realize it's a very weird day to do a live stream because it's a Saturday where I'm at. And I know that free rent is going on right now and people are getting ready to watch Berserk later. So it's kind of an odd day. I don't intend to do any more live streams on a Saturday. I think the rest of them this summer are going to be on Sundays. But tomorrow is Father's Day. So, oddly enough, I did not intend this to originally be on Father's Day weekend, but then it just worked out. I was like, oh, well, I want to do the Attack on Titan one June 2nd, and I'll do this one the 15th or 16th. And then I was like, oh, that's Father's Day. But it's funny because Pluto and Monster both talk a lot about father son relationships. So it felt weirdly appropriate. So, yeah. So, I hope you all are doing all right. I'm really excited talking about Urasawa and Pluto and Monster. I guess I'm gonna have a lot of open, yeah, very fun timing sunspots. Um, I feel like I'm gonna have a lot of Q&A to talk with you all about, but mainly I'm really excited that I have had the opportunity to watch Monster and then Pluto back to back. I remember around the time I was starting Monster, Pluto was coming out, and everybody was like, "Oh, you should do Pluto as well." And I was like, "Well, when I get done with Monster, I wanted to have that Friday slot opened up to watch whatever I wanted." And I was like, "Well, I'll just follow Monster up with Pluto. It's only 8 episodes. It'll be really easy to do." And it ended up working out really, really nicely. So I'm glad that I followed up and watched Pluto as well. So Diamond Long plays. Oh, hello. Oh, thank you. I just a quick side note. I'm going to apologize to everyone on YouTube and everyone on Patreon. And I know y'all will say, "Oh, don't apologize," but I really feel the need to, regardless, for this week and next week on YouTube. I'm actually what I'm getting ready to. I don't have any makeup on right now because I'm getting ready to, after this live stream, do a little prep work for volume 24 of Berserk. I will go ahead and apologize and say that volume 22 and volume 23 of Berserk were probably the hardest things I've ever recorded on this channel. I'm not necessarily proud of them, but I feel like they're time capsules in themselves, right? So I'm going to go ahead and apologize for those volumes, but I'm getting ready to do volume 24 this afternoon, and hopefully that will make up for it. So yay. But I have all the episodes of Monster, and I haven't seen any of them yet. Oh, well, we are going to talk a bit about Monster today and Pluto. We might talk a little bit about Pluto first, though, to save you from that. But yeah, so I definitely feel like a struggler with Berserk, but that's okay. But yeah, hello, Money Gambler, to you too. So yeah, I'm really happy that I've gotten to, and Frank, good morning. I'm really happy that I've gotten the chance to watch Monster and Pluto. I feel like Monster is a classic. If you've not seen it, it's so, so good. It's one of my favorites. I really enjoy Monster, and Pluto's fun too. We should probably talk about Pluto first, since it's more fresh, and then that way Diamond doesn't have to worry about being spoiled about Monster too much. But yeah, hello, Paige. So I'm super excited to talk about these. I have a couple questions that have been posed from patrons, so I kind of want to get to those to start off anything with it. You're welcome. I'm Sunspots. I'm going to save your question a little later. But I did have Santiago asked if with Pluto, if I would do a character tier. And I wish I could show you all. I wonder if it's going to let me show the character tier. Is it going to let me put it here? Is it going to let me put it in the chat? I don't think that that's possible. Ugh, nope. But I'm gonna post this Pluto character tier on the Discord when the live stream's over. But I'll just go through it. I basically went to a character tier and decided to like rank my favorite characters. Santiago, you are just in time because I'm about to do the character tier that you asked about. So I went to a character tier creator and they were asking me to rank my rank the Pluto characters like I did with Monster at the very end. So basically, we have S rank, A rank, C rank, and then D rank. S being like God tier, A being my criteria was S tier is like best of the best. Top 4 characters, love them so much. A rank is like, oh, they're good. They're amazing characters. They're not my favorites, but they're really, really good. B rank on the character tier that I made. I feel like the B rank would be like, I wish that there had been more with them in Pluto. I wish there'd been more with them. I wish we had more discussion with them. C rank is I'm like, who are you? Or I was just like not a fan. And then D rank is like, get out. So that was kind of my criteria. Hello, Deb. Oh, thank you so much. That's really appreciative. Yeah. Oh my God. Attack on Titan. Sad days. I wish that series was still going on. Kind of, but kind of not. Attack on Titan was a lot of stress, but a lot of fun too. So as far as Pluto goes, to answer your question, Santiago, of ranking the characters, my S tier rankings would be, I think my favorite character in all of Pluto. Oh, Frank, I will get to that. My favorite character is Gesick. You should not be surprised in Pluto. Gesick, blonde hair, detective, lots of angst. Why would we not like Gesick? Gesick is definitely my favorite. And I honestly, hello, Snow Dazed. It did work. I think I came into Pluto thinking Gesick was going to stay the main character throughout, and here we go. Yes, blonde hair. I'm in. That's right. Diamond Long plays. Yes. But Gesick was definitely my favorite. I think my second favorite was Epsilon. I really liked Epsilon. And plus, Epsilon is voiced by Miyana Mamoru. So anytime you give me a character voiced by Miyana Mamoru, even if they're an antagonistic character or a protagonist, I'm going to like them because it's Miyana Mamoru. He's like one of my favorite voice actors. I don't think he can do much wrong in terms of voice acting. So him getting to voice Epsilon was like icing on the cake. So he was my number 2. I ended up liking Adam a lot. So I had Adam as number 3. My third favorite. I had so many conspiracy theories with Adam, and I feel like everyone in the comments was like, girl, what are you doing? Because at the very beginning, I had all of these theories about Adam, and everybody was just like, I could tell, even the people that left comments, I could tell they were kind of like biting their tongue and being like, like, we're just going to let you work through this, girl, but no. So I was very happy with how Adam's character turned out. So Diamond Long plays Steve Bloom is also a definite yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes. Now, Steve Bloom, was he Krillin's voice actor for Dragon Ball Z? I'm pretty sure Steve Bloom's really good. I like him as a voice actor as well. Yeah. Sunspots, I'm glad you liked the suspicion. And Adam, he's too good. He must be evil. I think that I will be honest with you all. I'll be honest. This is one thing I didn't want to bring it up because I was like, does this kind of spoiler talk? But Netflix needs to get on top of regulating thumbnails and things that are spoilery. Netflix needs to figure that out because I will be honest, I watched this series through Netflix and at the beginning of the series, and I think looking back, this influenced me thinking Adam was evil, is that when I would click on the episode, there was a screenshot from episode 8 from the last episode that was Adam going to punch Sahad, and it was him with the red eyes. And looking back, I'm like, did that subliminally make me think that he was evil when I was going to watch it on Netflix? Was that subliminally fueling those suspicions? I think it was. So Netflix, get on it. And I'm glad I didn't watch Monster through Netflix because I think I would have been spoiled. So I'm glad that they decided, that I decided, luckily had Anthony, a patron, give me files for that series, which helped me watch it later on. So, but yeah, I ended up liking Epsilon a lot. Epsilon, Adam, Gesick, and then Frank, you will be happy to know that my number 4, my last S tier character was North number 1. North number one, what a sad character. In one episode alone, we get this beautiful story with North number one that I thought was so beautiful, so encapsulated, so perfect. And then he's just gone. And I'm like, I can't believe that. I'm so sad about it. Where does the snail that Adam picks up rank? You know what, Frank? The snail was not on, it was not on the character tier that I had. But if I was, I would put snail under B tier, because I think the snail deserved a little bit more screen time. I think they could have had more screen time. So yeah, so my S ranked characters for Pluto would be Gesick, Epsilon, Adam, and North number one. I think that they were just my four favorites. I liked their storylines the most. They had the most prominent screen time. So I think it makes sense that they were my S tiers. Now, my A ranked characters, I liked these characters a lot. They just weren't like my favorites. And my number one for that would be Iran. I think Iran, I wish we could have had more with her storyline, because the idea that she can sense fear and the idea that she can sense sadness, I think was a big major part of this series. The idea of how we reflect our emotions and how people perceive them. So, especially when it comes to Timma and Adam, I think that was like a whole storyline. So I wish we'd gotten more with her as far as that goes. And I had to put Sahad next to Iran, because Sahad's storyline was really surprising to me, because we have this entity Pluto come into the story, and we think Pluto is going to be this big thing. And then we find out how human this monster is, and it's so good. And Urasawa is amazing at this idea of humanity versus monsters, and how we have demons inside of us that make us monsters. And Urasawa talking about, like, do we cling to our humanity? Do we let it go? Do we lean into the darkness? Do we keep striving to like escape it? Urasawa has so many great themes in his storytelling that focus on that were really, really nice. So I liked Sahad an awful lot in the storyline. I felt bad for him by the end. He just wanted his life to end, and that was so sad. Ochano Mizu, he was the scientist that I really, really liked. He was my A-ranked character. At first, I gave him a lot of flack because he just let Goji into his house. I was like, what are you doing? But as the story goes on and we see how attached he is to Adam, and especially after people in the comments were telling me how Ochano Mizu was originally like the one that took Adam in and helped take care of him, I was like, okay, I liked how Urasawa adapted his character. It was really, really good. Hello, I don't know how to pronounce your name. You've entered the chat, but hello, nice to see you here in the chat with everybody. Other A-ranked characters for Pluto, Helena, Gesick's wife, she was really sweet. And she also gets like a moment of emotional vulnerability, which was really cool. I thought I really wanted more with Iran and with Helena, and that is something a lot of people have criticized Urasawa for. I don't mind it. A lot of people say, I think it might have been H Banana 7 that said that Urasawa doesn't have as many female characters, but I think the ones he does have are well written. I like them a lot. Haven't seen Pluto yet. Is it worth it? Yes, I guess we'll do a side note. I'm doing character tier rankings, so I'll try not to be too spoilery with that. But I would say yes. I definitely think if you are someone that does not like long anime, if you're like, oh, I don't have time to invest in 4 seasons, or in the case of Monster, you're like, I don't have time to invest in 74 episodes, then yeah, I definitely think Pluto, it's a good watch. It's only 8 episodes, so it's very short. It goes by so quickly. The animation is really good in it. I thought the quality was good. I have some nitpicks towards the end, but I will save that. But that's my own personal opinion. I think that if you like Tetsuka and his manga, because a lot of this is based off of a Tetsuka story, then I think it's a good adaptation. So I think Pluto is worth it. I'm glad that I watched it. I'm glad I didn't wait on it, because I was like, well, do I put it on a poll? Do I keep it going? But yeah, it surprisingly in 8 episodes tells a complete story. And I will give a lot of praise to Pluto, because I feel like I won't spoil much for you because you haven't seen it, but I will say it is adapted from a Osamu Tezuka manga. And in that regard, I was really worried when I found that out. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this, because sometimes adaptations, especially when they're so short, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work or not. And it surprisingly does. And yes, Sunspots is very correct. The art and the music. Oh, the soundtrack of Pluto, the score is great. I thought it was wonderful. It definitely, let me say this, having watched Monster and knew it came out in the early 2000s, and this was more recent, I was very much afraid because, you know, if a mangaka has not had a work adapted in a while, you're like, oh, I really like Monster. Am I going to like Pluto because it's more recent, or is the quality going to edge off? What's that going to be like? I was really, really satisfied that the Pluto adaptation still had that quality of Urasawa, that storytelling, that character development. It felt like an Urasawa story, but it was just shorter. And that's my only complaint, is that it's shorter. That's all I will say. My only complaint with Pluto is that I wish it was longer and it could encapsulate more moments. I wish it was a 12 episode series instead of 8, if that makes sense. Based on what people have told me about what was left out from the manga, I wish it was 12 episodes instead of 8, but yeah, I definitely recommend it. I think it's a great series and it's not going to take you long. You can binge right through it. You could watch it in a weekend and be through it. And if you had time, you could do like 4 episodes a day if you wanted, if you had like an afternoon open, and be able to get through it fine. I definitely, and I love some of the themes of it. It's really, really cute. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, I agree, Frank. I'm amazed that they did 1 volume per episode. I'm still like, that blows my mind, because I have Monster. You can kind of see it in the back there at the bottom there. I have the Monster perfect editions back there that I found, and those are all, that's 74 episodes in like 9 volumes. So when I saw that Pluto was a volume per episode, I was like, Monster, there was like a lot per volume, many episodes per volume. So I was kind of like, what? So yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you for joining the chat. I hope you enjoyed Pluto. Hello, DLSP. Nice. But yeah, getting back to the character tier rankings, on my A tier, Iran, Sahad, Ochanomizu, Helena. I would put Brando, and Hercules in there as well, because I really liked their characters. I was shipping them hardcore, even though Brando has a wife and a family. I thought that their characters were really good foils for each other. I thought they worked out really good in that sense, and that Hercules didn't really have a family. He wasn't really that type of person. But then Brando is like his best friend, and he has a family. And so I liked that you had these 2 companions that are both war veterans that have very different post-war lives, but they're still able to be compassionate and friendly towards each other, and they stick up for each other. It was really, really well done. So as far as my B tier, the B tier that I have for Pluto, I would say these are characters that I thought deserved more screen time. I wish they had more screen time. Mont Blanc was one of them. Mont Blanc being the one robot that I was like, I wish I could have seen more of him. I wanted to see more of his character. We got like little snippets, and that he was like, you know, friends to all the people and all the squirrels and everything. But I wish we could have gotten more with his character. Hoffman, that was Gesic's repairman. I wish we'd gotten more with him. I kept thinking his storyline was going to go somewhere when he was kidnapped, and then it was just over and done. Brow. I want to watch the English dub only because I know ProZD does the voice for Brow, and I really like him as a content creator. And so I really only want to watch the dub because he's voicing Brow, and I want to see that play out. So I will probably watch the dub at some point this summer just to see his character. But I liked his character a lot, this Hannibal Lecter robot. I thought that was really, really cool. I wish we'd gotten more, especially what people have told me with the manga. I wish we'd gotten more with his character. And then the young boy, oh, what's his name? Starts with a W. It's not Whimsy. Is it not Wilkie? What is his name? Y'all will have to help me in the chat. The one boy who becomes a plot point. I wish we'd gotten more with him. The robot woman at the very beginning that Gesick helps. She was a B ranked character. And then surprisingly, Abula and Adolf. I thought that Abula and Adolf's characters, here's the thing. I put them in B ranking, not because they're great characters. They have a lot of flaws, and they're characters you can kind of love to loathe. And that's kind of where I am with Abula and Adolf. I thought their characters were very well written. The arcs that their characters go on, without spoiling anything, I thought were really, really good. I thought they were layered. They were nuanced. They added a lot more. I had a suspicion and a mindset about Abula and Adolf when the story started. And then by the time their arcs ended, I had a very different opinion about them. And so I thought that those type of characters I really like. I like characters that you get a lot of meat for and a lot of depth. And then you can kind of, your opinions of them change over the course of the series. So yeah, My C ranking, and I'm going to put this character tier on Discord on Patreon, so y'all will be able to see it in full. The one character, he has like black glasses. I don't know who he is. He looks like an old man. I put him in C ranking because I couldn't remember who he was. And then the Darius or Demetrius, the president of Persia, I put him in C ranking because I was like, it's fine. It's not really anything crazy. I only had 2 D ranked characters in Pluto. One of them was the cockroach man. He grosses me out beyond all belief. He's like Lunge, but gross and not intelligent. And I'm like, ugh, no, thank you. And then the other one is Tenma. Dr. Tenma, not Tenma from Monster, but Tenma from Pluto. I deranked him hard. I was like, dude, get out. I like that I have Adam at the top of the ranking and Dr. Tenma at the bottom. I think, and especially knowing how he was in the manga from what people have told me from Tetsuka's original story, I'm like, yeah, no, he deserves to be there. I do appreciate that at least Urasawa tried to make him more complex and tried to take a villainous character that was kind of one note in the manga and gave him layers. I think Urasawa is amazing at that. If Urasawa can do anything, he can give characters layers. And I thought he was great with that. Sunspots, I'm glad you agree. But I do think that Dr. Tim, I liked where his character went. I was just like, oh no, he deserves to be in D. So yeah, those are the classifications, the character tier. When this live stream's over, I will put that in the Discord. So Santiago, I hope that helps answer your questions about that. Shimuyama asked about if with Monster and Pluto, is there a favorite side plot or character that you liked the most? And I would say with Pluto, my favorite side plot or character was honestly with Gesick and Robita, with the child robot. That gutted me. That entire storyline gutted me. And the thing about it is again, how Urasawa works is that he sets something up and you think it's going to be this certain way. And then he comes around and is like, no, actually, it's this. So when that whole plot line started, I thought it had a much more menacing and darker tone to it. I thought it was going to be a reveal that was going to be violent or was going to be negative. And then when the whole Robita reveal comes around at the very end, you're like, oh, and it all comes together and it's sweet and heartwarming. And it just, I've gone back and watched that scene of him like carrying. I like that Frank in the chat, Frank said in the Discord, it was kind of like Short Circuit. If you've ever seen Short Circuit, it's like Johnny Five, but that little baby robot looks like Johnny Five wrapped up in the swaddling cloths. And it kills me. If you've seen Short Circuit too, that movie in my childhood was like one of my major, like, oh my gosh, this is cinematic gold. But that whole scene reminds me of it. And it melts my heart. I'm like, oh, so hello, Gerdim. Hello. We are talking about Pluto and Monster today. So, favorite side plots or characters. And so, with Pluto, yeah, the Robita angle is definitely my favorite. With Monster and Diamond Long Plays, I'm going to keep this as short and sweet as possible. Grimmer and Martin. Those are my favorite side characters. Those are my favorite side plots. Monster is such an amazing series because it is 74 episodes long. And when you start getting into it, it is kind of like you have to ease into it. Like some people say that Monster has a slow beginning. I disagree. I was encapsulated like from the start. I was like, oh yes, this is a great story. And I was like riveted from the moment that it began. But I will say this for Monster. When I was watching it early on in like the first 10 or so episodes, I was sitting there thinking, this is a 74 episode series. How are we going to keep this plot going for 74 episodes and make it fresh and keep it engaging and keep it mysterious and have twists and turns? How's that going to work? And Urasawa finds a lot of ways to make that happen. And I was like, oh, and none of it ever feels like it's filler. None of it ever feels like it's just fluff to expand the plot. It just, every beat for beat, it all connects. It all threads together. It reminds me a lot of the series Arrested Development, which is a comedy series. But in that series, if you watch the first 3 seasons of Arrested Development, all of those storylines. You don't realize it at the time while you're watching. You just think, oh, this is an episodic comedy show. But as the series keeps going and as those 3 seasons keep, happening, there's all these little tiny threads that by the last episode weave together and tie this big bow. And you're like, oh my God, it all comes together. And that's exactly how Monster is. Each arc, each character moment, it all adds up and it all strings together. And it's just, it's so freaking good. Yeah. Gurdim, Monster is a bit like Fincher's Zodiac. The perfect pacing for that kind of story. Oh, yes. God, it's been forever since I've seen Zodiac. But it's so good. Oh, my favorite is A Taste of Sugar. Shimoyama. Yes, I would agree with Monster. That theme of the sugar that we get with Rosso, that would definitely be one of my favorite sides. And that too, that whole scene with the sugar, it's like a one and done episode, or so you think. And you're like, oh, well, that was just like a little one-off episode with Nina. That's no big deal. And then that same theme of sugar, like being able to taste the sugar is a sign of your humanity, that keeps coming up throughout the whole series. And you're like, oh my God, like Urasawa just frames it and then keeps it coming. But Grimmer and Martin's arcs, I think, are my favorite. And they are 2 of my favorite characters. So I'm like, yes. I'm a sucker for a blonde with a mysterious nature to them that have some detective skills. You give me those 3 things and I'm like, I'm down. So yeah, I hope that helps answer your question, Shimoyama and Santiago. Sunspots, I guess we'll start talking a little bit into Monster with this. And if y'all have any questions about it as we go, let me know in the chat. My dog is going to try to give me a toy while we're doing this. But Sunspot's question was, do I have any thoughts or opinions that have changed with Monster or Pluto since watching? And I'm going to go to Frank's comment here before we dive more into that. I haven't seen Monster, but I get the impression it would be similar to another of Osamu Tezuka's series, Blackjack. Yeah. Okay. So Blackjack, I'm Sunspots. I'm sorry for sideswiping and derailing for a hot second, but yeah, I was actually doing a review of Unico, which is another of Osamu Tezuka's works. And there is a special, it's going to come out on Patreon at the end of the month, but it's a special where there's all these different Osamu Tezuka characters that are involved in it. And one of them was called Blackjack, and they established she was a doctor. And then someone in the comments for Pluto said that there's a reference to Blackjack in Pluto. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I agree, because Urasawa was so influenced by Osamu Tezuka, I would not be surprised if the main character of his work, Monster, is inspired by Blackjack. And yeah, that seems like, now that you mention it, that's so crazy. Yeah, that's basically, I don't know about the series Blackjack, but Monster seems like a direct inspiration. And can we talk about that? Because I was thinking about that with Pluto. The more people talked about how close Pluto is in relation to Tezuka's Astro Boy, I was sitting there going, Urasawa just wrote a fanfic. He did a fan fiction of Astro Boy and published it and got it animated. Because if you think about it, Pluto is basically Astro Boy fan fiction. It really is. It is so inspired by that previous series. And I know some people will argue that it's not fan fiction, it's an adaptation, a modernized adaptation. But my thing is too, I think that there's enough elements that are just Urasawa that I think it's a fanfic. I think that when he adds in some of these characters, when he alters some perspectives and things, I'm like, are you adapting? And I guess that would be a big question, is at that point, is it adaptation or fan fiction depending on who you are as the creator, or is it the content itself? Because yeah, that's the big question. Is Pluto an adaptation, or is it a fanfic that he got published and adapted? It gets a little dicey there, right? The very name Dr. Tenma is a Tetsuka inspiration. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like with Monster, Dr. Tenma was like this combination of Blackjack and Dr. Tenma, but I think it leans more heavily to Blackjack from what Frank is describing. So that's interesting to me. But yeah, so getting back to Sunspots' question, do I have any thoughts or opinions that have changed with Monster or Pluto since watching? I will be honest, with Monster, no. I haven't gone through another monster, which I haven't pulled up to go over with you all and talk about here in a little bit, but I don't necessarily have um any thoughts that have changed with Monster since watching. I still really enjoy the series. I still like it. I feel like maybe the only thing that has softened is my view of Johann a little bit. I feel like when you watch a series and you have an antagonist that's very like in your face and very visceral, or you have a visceral response to, I feel like as a reactor and as a viewer, I initially have a very stark and emotional response to characters like that, and I'm like, oh, I hate them, or oh, this happens, or whatever. But that phrase, "time heals all wounds," I feel like after time, I start to kind of soften and go back and reevaluate and be like, okay, did I really hate them? Did I really hate that character? Or was that just me in the moment? And I feel like with Johann, I've definitely softened my opinion of him. I still think he's a really great antagonist, but I'm not as against him as I think I was when watching the series originally. And then with Pluto, it's kind of the same thing. I had a lot of grievances with the ending of that series that are just my own personal like narrative choices that I like as a viewer. But going back, and especially, I think the good thing is when you all in the comments at the end of a series give me feedback as to what was missing or what was left out. I obviously don't want to know about that during the moment reacting because I want to be surprised. But I like going back at the end of the series and when people comment being like, okay, now here's the rest of the story, just so you know. I really like that because it makes me get a better picture of it as a whole. And it makes me kind of understand and enjoy the story better. So I think after watching Pluto and hearing some comments about the adaptation, I felt a lot better about it. What we got here? Frank A says Urasawa was asked to adapt Tetsuga's story in his style to celebrate Astro Boy's animation at the time. See, there we go. Okay. He refused at first, but after thinking about it, he was moved to make it so he could tell the story from Gesik's point of view. Oh, that is so cool. Okay. Well, see, that makes a lot more sense because I was like, what? Why did he do this? Why do it in 2003 after, so many years? But that actually makes a lot of sense, and that also would kind of tie along the lines of Astro Boy's anniversary. What's interesting about that is that he did the manga in 2003. And at that point, Tetsuka had passed in 1989. So I guess they were just doing it for the Astro Boy anniversary. That's interesting. I mean, it makes sense of why he did it, but I'm glad he told it from Gesik's point of view because I thought that that was a really cool move. I loved seeing it from Gesik's perspective and seeing that part of the storyline. So I'm glad he did that. Nice. Thank you, Frank, for educating us in the chat about some extra details with that. So that's cool. So yeah, I know there are other Urasawa series that are still out there. I know 20th Century Boys. I think that's one of them. Obviously, there's that series by Urasawa. I think there's some others people have recommended. I know 20th Century Boys, they're planning to do an anime adaptation of it, but it's a manga right now. I know a lot of people are, from what I've read, a lot of people are worried about that adaptation because they say it's really ambitious and it would be really hard to adapt for reasons. I don't know. I've had a lot of people ask if I would watch more Urasawa creations. The answer is yes. I would love to watch more Urasawa creations. I just want to like space out and take a break from his work for now. I know that as I say this, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because I'm reading all of MXTX's trilogy right now at the same time. But having done that, I do think that I would want to space out and save some other Urasawa works for later so I can enjoy them later. I don't want to finish all of the Urasawa works and then have nothing and then be like, oh man, I wish I had some more Urasawa stuff to read. So I'd like to space that out as well. Sunspots said, finally watching Pluto made me appreciate Monster even more. Oh, thank you. But yes, I definitely am glad I watched Monster before Pluto because I think knowing some of Urasawa's conventions as far as his character building made me appreciate it a lot more as well. I'm glad I didn't watch it at the same time. I think I wouldn't have had the same appreciation that I do. Yeah, I really want to see 20th Century Boys. I can't decide if I want to wait till as an anime adaptation. Eventually, I got to get through Berserk first, but eventually I would like to do another manga poll and do another manga series. And so that one, I would consider that, but I don't know if it would be too soon, right? And so let me see here. Have you seen any of Manban, Urasawa's show where he interviews fellow mangaka on their approach? No, but that sounds amazing. I would love to watch a show where mangaka are approached on their writing and drawing styles. Frank, you will have to link that in the Discord so that I can see some of that. That would be amazing. Yes. He did so many manga and a lot of them are quite long. I mean, Urasawa being influenced by Tezuka Gurdam, I think makes a lot of sense because when I was researching Unico for my video analysis, I did not realize that Osamu Tezuka had written in his 40 years of being a mangaka 700 manga. It's like 700 manga. I don't think I've read 700 manga, but much less create 700 manga. That is insanity. That is insanity. That is so crazy. Oh, Frank, I would watch Urasawa's take on Unico in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Let's petition him to do it. Petition him to do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. I would do a modern adaptation on Unico, honestly. Anybody wanting to take it on. Give Shaft Studio it. Let them do Unico dramatic head turns every 5 seconds. Let's do it. But I really, really am not surprised that Urasawa does so many long manga and has so many in his bibliography because if he's influenced by I feel like that could be a big deal with it. So Amnaf, what you say? What are your thoughts on Monster? What do you mean? What are my thoughts on Monster? Any specifically? I like it. It's one of my favorite shows. I love it. I will say this, and this is trying not to spoil anything for anyone. But Monster on the surface, I thought that at first it was going to be very simplistic. And I was like, this seems like a simple concept. And it kind of is, but it's one of those iceberg series where all you see is like the top of the iceberg. And then below it, there's like the insane depth of the iceberg. And I'm like, ah. And that's kind of my thoughts on Monster. What do we say here? There is a new Unico manga coming out. Yes, I didn't have enough information about it when I was making the video analysis to really talk about it, other than they were like, yeah, we've been kickstarting this new manga. So it looks fine. The stills I've seen of the new one, it looks okay. It's not exactly my style. I feel like some new modern, like especially Western comic artwork, it feels a little too sanitized or like the line work. I like Gritty's 80 line work. I'm about to watch Revolutionary Girl Utina, and what I've seen of that is like the gritty 1980s, early 90s. I like the harsh lines, the gritty, the grunge, the uber detailed, hyper realistic settings. But then you have characters with 8-mile long legs and harsh eyebrows and crazy hair. Like that style, I live. I live for that style. The modern approach to like Western comics where everything is very rounded and bubbly, I'm not as big of a fan of because it looks too clean. It doesn't look gritty. And I like gritty art. I like art that looks like you just splattered. It's probably why I like Berserk so much because that artwork is just exactly up my alley. It's exactly what I love. Mm-hmm. Oh, Gurdam, I just read your comment. Yes, I will say, I don't want to be spoiled, obviously, so nobody tell me anything else, but I will say I've watched episode 1. That's all I've watched, and it is basically Shoujo Neon Genesis, and that's all you had to tell me, and I'm in. I'm on board. I'm ready. I'm so into it. So yes, I'm ready for it. But yes, Frank, we get back to this. 90s flat color characters and watercolor backgrounds like Sailor Moon. Yes. And yes, basically. I'm not going to spoil Utina. My reactions to Revolutionary Girl Utina are going to start on Patreon July 7th. And then they're going to be the week after on YouTube. And I'm going to try to watch ahead a little bit so I don't get spoiled because I feel like it's one of those series like Berserk and Neon Genesis that I want to watch ahead so I can avoid some spoilers and get some fun theories going with that series. So fun times. Shimuyama says Ayako and MW are showcases of Tetsuka's dark side. Ooh, interesting. Tezuka, if we're going to talk about Tezuka influencing Urasawa, I would definitely say that from watching Unico and some other stuff from Tezuka has a dark side for sure. And it's really interesting with Unico that he influences like children's series with this darkness. It's fabulous. I love it. So Frank says the same animation director from Sailor Moon did Utina. Well, that makes sense. That all makes sense. Okay, Penguin Drum. Penguin Drum, people have recommended on Patreon like it's like candy. I don't know what Penguin Drum is, but I have been recommended that series over and over and over again. I want to do a short series here soon, a short series poll to replace Freerin. But I only want it to be like 12 to 13 episodes. And so Saran's on my would fit into that. But Penguin Drum is just a little bit longer. So I'm going to wait on that one a little bit. But I definitely want to put Penguin Drum on a future poll because I've had a lot of recommendations. And Saran's on my no spoilers. I'm all for unique anime. People are like, oh, this series is weird. It's unique. I'm like, give me it. Please. I can do weird shit. Don't worry about that. I can handle weird. And I feel like it's more fun to watch someone be confused and then slowly figure it out. At least I think it's fun to watch people be confused and figure it out. I think that stuff's entertaining. So hopefully you all through Revolutionary Girl Utina will watch me be horrifically confused and then slowly try to theorize my way out of the box. Yay. But to get back to it, hello Sadus. I want to say War is what is this? Apple Red says, have you heard of the show Love is War? Yeah, it is longer, and I actually have had that on a poll before. I think it might have gotten second or third in the poll. I definitely want to get to some longer series. I'm doing March Comes in Like a Lion right now, which is a sports anime. So a sports anime is going to replace that one. But I'm also doing Natsume's Book of Friends. And that one is longer. So when I get done with Natsume, I get done with Berserk, I definitely would like to bring some longer series back on the polls, like Love is War, like Tiger and Bunny, like Durarara. That one's everybody's been raving about. And some longer series too, right? H Banana, we have just been randomly talking about Monster and Pluto and just going through it. I've got the Another Monster wiki pulled up. I'm just not ready to go through it, so it has to win a poll. And here's the thing, Apple Red, I definitely like polling series because there's so much anime out there. It's so hard to choose, right? It's so hard to decide. So I like patrons picking because y'all are paying me, so I'll watch whatever you want me to watch. And I trust your opinions. I trust the opinions of people who have watched a lot of anime because they probably can discern like what's a good series. And I know that's subjective because you're like, well, everybody has different tastes, but usually a very bad series will not get recommended because people will be like, oh no, don't waste your time with that. But the series that are recommended are usually of enough quality that I'm going to enjoy them. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll watch them. I'll read them. But yeah, so I do have polls, but my Friday slot is going to be open for just shows that I want to watch. So right now I'm doing Uramichi Onisan, which if you want a comedy that has existential crisis every 5 minutes, watch Uramichi Onisan. I freaking love that show. It's amazing. But I'm watching that on Friday. And so my Friday slot's going to be open to series that maybe didn't win the poll and has been on the poll a lot, but nobody's really like, it's not enough to win, but they're clearly a good series. So I think I'm going to reserve it for that. Although after Uramichi Onisan, I'm really flirting with the idea of getting back into something really commercial like Bleach. So we'll see if that happens. Especially since the 1,000-year-old blood war arc is like still going on, you know. Gurdem, even mediocre ones are perfectly enjoyable. Yeah, honestly, it's seriously, there's so many good anime out there that are not necessarily mold breaking, but still worth watching. So I definitely want to get to those. We could have more than one Romania's Choice Day. Yes. And honestly, I think that when Berserk is over, Sunspots to go along with that. I think that when Berserk is done, that may end up being the case because I want to get back down to 7 shows a week, 1 show a day, you know. I just went ahead and did the manga with Berserk because I've been wanting to read it for so long. But what I'm going to be doing once Freerin is over is I'm going to go through the polls and see 12 to 13 episode series that have been highly recommended. They've almost won the poll, but they've just been shy of it. And it's coming in the mail today. My dogs may freak out if the mailman shows up with it, but I actually bought a spinning wheel, like a prize wheel. It's like Wheel of Fortune, has all the different options on it. And what I'm going to do is, I told my mods this, what I'm going to do is I am going to take my top 10 favorites of the 12 to 13 episode series that have not won, but have been highly voted upon over on Patreon. and I'm going to put them on that spinning wheel, and I'm going to spin the wheel 3 times and get 3 choices. And then I'm going to go to Patreon and put those 3 choices on there, and you all will vote for what order we watch them in. So 12 episode series, you know, that's like, what is that? 40 episodes? I'm not a mathematician. We have 12, we have 24, we have 36. Yeah, so it's 36. So it will be 3 shows, a wheel of reactions. Yeah. So it's basically gonna be 3 shows back to back on Saturdays, and you all will get to pick the order of the 3 that the wheel randomly picks. So we're gonna leave part of it in the hand of fate, and part of it is gonna be in your hands as well. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Just something different for the rest of the year for that Saturday slot. And I'll still have Berserk going on until it's finished. So yeah, and then from there, after we get done with those 3 shows, we can do a long show. But I really want to watch some big long series, but I also want to get through a lot more anime. So all in the flow of causality. Oh my God, Gurdon, I was gonna say it, Gurdon, but I decided that I would just, you know, if you know, you know, but you exactly have the right idea. Basically, it's like there's gonna be some God hand involved, gonna be some human choice, gonna be some flying fish, gonna be some God hands. What can we do? But yeah, so that's my idea anyway. So, and then from there on, it might become a choice day. Who knows? Who knows? Yes, yeah. Serial Experiments Lane was probably going to be on that poll, going to be on that wheel for sure. Apple Red, because it had a lot of recommendations. Odd Taxi was one that keeps getting on there. There's been a couple, and I want to go through all of the previous polls on Patreon over the last year or two and just kind of sort them out. So it'll be fine. It'll be great. But yeah, so before we go on talking about another monster, because I want to bring that page up and kind of show you all. Do any of you all have questions? Hello, Dan. Hello. Anybody have any questions about Monster and Pluto before we look at? I have another monster, which is like a book here. It's basically got different little. It basically what the book is another monster was talking about from another perspective the case with Tenma, and then apparently there are different little articles and stuff that get revealed. I don't know if it's worth going through with you all, if it's worth doing that. Oh, Apple Red, I'm surprised Utina won. Yes, it did. I was really excited. To be honest, let me see. And here's the thing too. I definitely, the shows that are recommended, I want to make sure that they have translations. Because here's the thing with Revolutionary Girl Utina, it won the poll. And then I was watching a video from Mother's Basement. I don't know if you all have seen it on YouTube, but it was mainly talking about Full Metal Alchemist, which is why I was watching it. But it was talking about lost media and how some streaming services are not picking up recent shows, like Crunchyroll's not picking up different shows. The licenses are expiring, and they're just kind of like letting them sort out into the nether sphere. And they mentioned Revolutionary Girl Utina, and I was like, oh no. It's like, as soon as he mentioned Revolutionary Girl Utina, I was like, that just won my poll, and am I going to be able to watch it? And so I told Discord, I was like, ooh, I don't know what's going to happen now. And then, of course, we joked, it's on YouTube, but it's on YouTube with like 480p quality. And someone on the Discord, it was Kelsey, she was like, well, you could just watch the 480p version and experience it like the rest of us in 2004. And I was like, that would be hilarious. But luckily, a patron, Anthony, had all of the files, and they're like, I'll let you look at the files so you can have a high quality for the reaction. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. So yay. So yeah, we'll be doing Revolutionary Girl Utina starting in July, which is so exciting. What do I watch my shows on? Well, it depends on the show, Apple Red. With Berserk, with the 97 anime, it hadn't come out on Blu-ray yet. So honestly, I watched it from YouTube. Somebody had all the YouTube episodes posted, so I watched it from there. Let me back to a couple of these comments about Monster. Snow Days said, did you decide whether you wanted Grimmer to end up with Timma or Lunge? Do I want Grunge as the ship, or do I want Grinma? That's a good question. I can be a multi-shipper. I can ship both, right? Can we ship both? Here's the thing. It's so weird. My heart tells me that I would like Grimmer and Tinma because it's so quaint. It's like a picnic. It's very sweet. It's very kind and everything. But then my head's like Grimmer and Lunge, grunge. They could go on adventures. They could do detective work. They could go under and do espionage. I'm like, yes, give me that. So I was like, that sounds even better. So I honestly think I like grunge a little bit better, honestly. And I never thought I would say that. But I mean, I think Grimmer and Tinma, they're great friends, gonna be bros for life. But grunge, I'm like, give me Grimmer and Lunge Adventures. I'd be all for that. I would like that a lot. H Banana 7 says, I personally love how Monster starts. Yes. Oh, that's why when some people were commenting, they were like, oh, well, Monster has a very slow beginning. I'm like, slow beginning. I was like, it's actually like really engaging from the start. And then I would say there is like a little bit of a little bump you have to get over from the beginning. But once you get over that bump, it's like it's a roller coaster. So no, I was engaged the entire time watching Monster. I really, really, really liked it. What do we have here? Frank A says, what do you think about Urasawa and Tetsuka's thoughts on the direction of AI and robotics and how it is now in 2024? Oh my gosh, that was another thing. I was really excited watching Pluto the same time as all of this with AI is going on because I feel like it's so topical. I'm also watching a series called Psychopaths, and that series focuses a lot about AI as well. And so I feel like I'm watching Psychopath at the same time, very at the perfect time because there's so much discussion about AI and robotics. And I don't know, I'm a teacher, so my thought about AI is very much like it should be a tool and should be something to enhance but not replace. And I think that as AI being used, I don't think it's I'm not going to get political with y'all because this is an anime reaction channel, but I feel like AI can be used in helpful ways, but for me, they are very few. And I think that they can be easily misused. And I just have like in the back of my mind, Malcolm from Jurassic Park, like his words are echoing in the back of my mind, being like, people aren't thinking about whether they can or not, or but rather whether they should or not. And that's kind of like just keeps blaring in the back of my head. So I'm like, ugh. But I do like the idea that Pluto poses about robotics and humanity and having a soul. And especially as people have told me in other series about Japanese culture and the idea of souls and bodies. I'm watching Puella Magi Madoka Magica right now, which talks about souls and bodies too. So that all feels relevant. But yeah, I think that Pluto it brings up so many interesting topics and it ties back to history in interesting ways. So I think that watching it right now is really it's again laws of causality. It's a stroke of fate. And then yes, just when you announced you were reacting to Utina, Crunchyroll let the license lap. Yeah. So luckily, like I said, Anthony from Patreon has me hooked up. I've got the files. They are really good quality. So I'm excited about that. Oh yeah, H Banana. Haikyuu is like a shipper's paradise. That and Krogo's basketball. The next live stream I do is going to be Krogo's basketball on the 30th, and we're going to just be doing a shipping video. It's just going to be shipping, nothing but shipping in that. So I'm ready for it. It is not slow at all. Yeah, Money Gambler. I agree. I think maybe if you were expecting, if you grew up like I did with the shonen formula of like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and Bleach, then it may seem slow, but it's not at all. I loved it so much. Dan says Lunge is the type of man I'm only attracted in fictional context. Oh my god, yes. I would never have an attraction towards Lunge in real life at all, physically or personality wise. But somehow in fiction, it's kind of like growing up. I always liked bad boys in fiction. I always liked like Raphael from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I had a natural crush on growing up. I was like, I had a major crush on Raphael from like the 1991 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Horrific crush. Um, but I honestly, I've always liked a bad boy in fiction, but in real life, absolutely not. So I totally understand what that's like. And Frank, yes, buying the physical releases. Here's the thing, and you all, if you guys are patrons, then you'll see that this weekend, this Sunday, I'm doing a reaction to Unico, like the Fantastic Adventures of Unico. I had a horrible time with it because I have it on DVD and I have a DVD player that I hooked up to my computer and I went to watch it and record the reaction and it recorded me, but for the actual movie, it just showed a gray screen. And I was like, I was like, the DVD encoder did not let the reaction tape, and I was so pissed because I watched like an hour and a half and didn't realize it wasn't filming it, and then when I went back, it did not save at all, and I was like, it was just a gray screen. So after that, I got really nervous. Like I would want to support the official release and buy Utina, and I probably will buy Utina in the physical copy so I have it, especially now that it's gone. But for the reactions, I was terrified that I'd spend the money, get the DVD, get the Blu-ray, and then I would try to record it and it wouldn't work. And by that point, I had wasted all that time buying it and waiting on it to come in. So I was like, no, Anthony was lucky enough to get me the copies of the files, but I still want to own the Blu-ray, especially after watching episode 1. I already can tell I'm gonna like it. So yay. What else do we have here? Money Gambler, time for another AI anime. No, that's the thing. I was like, AI writing scripts is fun for a hot second, but I don't know. I just maybe not. Maybe as a joke, but I don't know about that. Apple Red, do you prefer lighter shows or English teacher hardcore analysis shows? Yeah, I feel like there needs to be a balance. There needs to be a balance. And that's kind of what I tried. That's why I went with Uramichi Onisan to replace Pluto, because I have a lot of shows right now like Berserk, Psychopaths that I'm watching that have some longer analyses, and they'll wear you out. So I feel like having a series where it's like a light analysis, like, oh, here's some character stuff that I want to talk about, but I'm not going to spend 3 hours analyzing. I'll be honest, somebody mentioned Attack on Titan at the very beginning of this live stream. Attack on Titan, it destroyed me mentally. I was exhausted. I was doing 2 episodes of that a week, and they were like 2 to 3 hour reactions and discussions. I was just exhausted. I was done. So I definitely want to have a balance. I like both, but I definitely want a balance if I'm going to have a channel with multiple shows on it. Tetsuka, there's a story, Gurdam is saying, an interesting graphic novel called Story of Three Adolfs. Yeah. Okay. When I was doing my research for Pluto, to get into the last episode, somebody in the comments mentioned that. And I was like, oh, and then when I was looking at Tetsuka's for Unico, all the manga, I saw Story of Three Adolfs, and I was like, I wonder if that's why he called that character Adolf in Pluto. And I wonder if that's based on that. So, yeah, that's really cool. That's awesome that you mentioned that. And the fact that it was set in the 30s and 40s, interesting choice. I saw the cover of the manga for that, and I was like, this is World War II based. All right, fair enough. Amphnaf says, for Monster, I think the beginning and end are really good, but oh no, I will respectfully disagree with a 3 out of 10, Amnaf. I will respectfully disagree. Like that show, I don't think it's bloated at all. No, I don't think it feels like filler at all. So I will have to respectfully disagree with you on that. I think that it all ties in. But here's the thing. As an English teacher, there are 7 elements of fiction, right? There's setting, there is perspective, there's characters, there's plot, there's style, there's theme, and there is symbolism. And I tell my students all the time and say that you typically gravitate towards one of those 7 elements and they're your favorite, and that's what determines if you like a story or not. So if your favorite element is plot or style, I could see why Monster would maybe not be up your alley. And no, I respect your opinion on that. For me, I'm a character person. I love characterization in stories. A story does not have to have the best animation. It does not have to have the best plot. It can have some nonsensical parts to it, but if it has good characters that I can either relate to or pick apart or dissect, I am going to be all about that series. And that is my jam. So for me, I can definitely understand what you're saying with the middle portion, but the characters for me, I'm like, oh, the characterization in Monster is what gets me. But I realize that that's my own bias, right? So I respect that. That's good. Classroom of the Elite, I have heard of that one. That's really cool. Now, I do love Death Note a lot. Death Note is such a great show. It's so cheesy, but it's great. It's not cheesy. Some parts of it are, but I love it. Light Yagami, what can we do with him? Brian Settle says, watching Urasawa's Master Keaton. Oh, I guess that's what Shimoyama meant by MK. Now showcases how much of a factory made business anime has become. It's not even that old, but it feels homemade compared to the big modern offerings. Oh, uh-huh. So, I definitely agree with that. I have a lot of issues, and we've talked about this in the Discord, in the main lounge about some modern anime, like the conditions for animators, how they have to like what it involves being in the business, especially with manga, like being a mangaka. I think that in the last few years, it's really become more apparent, like the conditions for these creators. And I really respect that a lot of these creators were like, no, the conditions you have me working in are stupid. I'm not going to do this. I really honestly can kind of tie it back to Oda, who is the author of One Piece. I remember when I was checking the spoiler forums for One Piece back in the early 2000s and through college, and people were getting mad. They've been like, Oda's taking a month off from the manga and he's not writing this manga for a month. And I was like, yeah, because have you seen him do what he does week to week? Like, guys getting exhausted. And the thing that's crazy is he had to get to a point where he was making enough money and where he was making the company enough money to say, if you want me to keep doing this, you're going to let me take breaks. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, sure. And now you see that with Akutami for Jujutsu Kaisen. You see that with Horikoshi from My Hero Academia. I've seen like their notes in Shonen Jump where they're like, oh, I'm sick this week, taking the week off. And it's like before, the fact that they didn't do that is bizarre to me. Just insane. Like the working conditions that they're in. It's absolutely crazy. So the Master Keaton that you have here, it sounds interesting. I will definitely have to put that on my list to consider. Dan says, have you seen the Nameless Monster book? It actually exists on Amazon. Yes, I have seen it. It's huge. I don't know if I will necessarily buy it because I can just watch the show and see it there, but I think that's cool that they have an actual book. That's so neat. I like it. I like it a lot. Dan, how do you handle being a teacher and work and so much of the YouTube at the same time? That's a great question. I when people ask me, they're like, "Oh, have you seen this show?" Or have you read this book or done that? And I'm like, no, because what I do in my off time when I'm not teaching or working or hanging out with family and friends is this channel. So right now, the only extra shows, other unless I'm like grading papers and watching reruns of Drag Race, which or Great British Baking Show, which happens a lot. I don't really do much outside this channel, other than work and, the personal time that I have. So yeah, it is a lot. And that's kind of why I want to get down to 7 shows and try to record ahead this summer. I have more hours open in the summer. So my goal is to get more stuff done over the summer. And that way I can prep for fall and have a little bit more time. So yeah. And I would honestly, I am so envious of the content creators that just do video analysis because I think those analysis videos, they're so interesting. And I wish I would have more time to do more of those. But I'll be honest, like the Unico video took me a month to do, a month to do off and on in my spare time. And it's like, is the work worth the reward? It depends, I guess, on how popular you are on YouTube. And if you value that more than anything, is kind of where that comes from. But characters trump all. Yes, Killer Queen. I love that. H Banana 7 says, my best friend's grandfather, Adolf, was German and moved to the US. Oh my gosh, he had to change his name. Yes. Oh my God. And but H Banana, that is such an incredible story because part of Urasawa's entire theme in Monster is about names and how your name and your labels get tied to who you are. And you can think of modern movies, you can think of things as commercial as Mean Girls that talk about like, here's the label. You think of all that, she's all that, and like the title of the dork, the jock, the nerd, Breakfast Club. You think of those movies from the 80s, like we place so much importance on labels and how we are described, and it becomes part of our identity. And I think that's such an awesome theme Urasawa talks about in Monster. And the story of your grandfather moving from Germany to the US and having to change their name because of what that connects to is so insane, right? Amnaf, my favorite aspect of character is story and lore. Yeah, and I would say with Monster, to your point there, I would say that there were some aspects about the lore in Monster that I wish were expanded on more. I wish there were some things that I thought about in Monster, especially with like Johan's background and his family and stuff that I thought we were gonna get more out of. And so I was surprised when we didn't. So I could definitely see why that would be a thing. Gerd him. lately, a lot, at least concerning anime, I tend to put at the top director and writing. It's an eternal thing of content and form. Yeah, and I think that that's a big task for animators. Like they have to do the illustrations, they have to do the grunt work of it all, right? They're on the front lines making it come to life. But you do have to have a director and a writer to give a vision and to give structure and form to that. So I would agree with that. Sure. Amnaf, I do think the characters of Monster are very engaging. However, I think they're a bit unrelatable. And that's the thing too, right? I feel like if you can't relate to a character in a story, it's really hard to latch onto it. I've watched some series where people have been like, "Oh, I can't wait for you to meet this character." And then I get to that character, but I can't relate to them and I don't quite get them and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, yeah, that's a huge part of it. Uh, Archipar says, I really hope 20th Century Boys gets an adaptation as well eventually. Yes, I know they're talking about working on an anime of it, but the manga would be really, really interesting too. Gurudim says, on that regard, Kinji Saruda is the chaddest mangaka ever. Oh, the Chad of Chads. He maybe is in some manga chapters at each new geological era. Interesting. Yeah, Great British Baking Show. I'm obsessed. Mm. Frank Ace, Bakuman from the creators of Death Note gives insight. Yes, Bakuman has been a series that I want to see as well. That one has been, it was on the polls before. I don't think it did very well, but I'm definitely going to put that on my radar too. Yes. And Dan's kind of the thing too. I honestly, I watch video essays and people recommend video essays to me. And then I watch them and I'm like, well, I kind of, and I feel so let down because in that moment feel let down in myself because I'll watch a video essay and then I'll go, they basically simplified what I've spent 20,000 hours talking about into 20 minutes. So, So that's another thing. I'm like, I could make a concise video essay of 24 minutes, or I could ramble on for 3 hours. Which would you all prefer? But yeah. Oh, okay. So here's the thing. XCSSD about Hunter x Hunter. Here's the thing about that series. Before I started my channel, before I started my channel, when the pandemic was just starting and we were trapped in our homes, my brother and my brother loves Hunter x Hunter. And he was like, you should watch it with me. And I was like, oh, okay. So I sat down and we marathoned it. I did not give it ample time for consideration. I basically was grading papers and he had it on in the background. And we got up into the Chimera Ant arc when it started. And then I started my channel and then I didn't watch any further because I was like, well, I might come back at some point. And I thought about it. I was like, at some point, I would like to go back and re-watch the entire series and give it more time and consideration and then finish it. So at some point when I do the long running poll of series, Hunter x Hunter is one, Fruits Basket 2019, although I've read the manga for Fruits Basket, so I don't know how good of a reaction it would be because I've already technically read the story. I know what happens. And then my brother has begged me to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so that would be on there as well. Just those series, right? H Banana 7. What's your computer background now? I heard it was Reagan last time. It was at one point. Right now, this is so random. My computer background is oh my gosh, my mind is gonna go blank in this moment. What is his name? It's from One Piece. Oh my god, Yamato. Yes, Yamato. Yamato from One Piece. He is my background right now. It's a little image where Yamato is like doing this. And they're like, It's from the episode where Yamato meets Ace. It's one of my favorite episodes of One Piece. That's my background right now. So that's exciting. Frank, your Eva and AOT videos. Oh my gosh. That's the thing. I love a series that is going to make me talk endlessly about it. I just need to do one at a time. So like right now, I feel like Psychopaths and Berserk are the two series that I can talk a long time about. I feel like the other series I can talk a great deal about, but Psychopaths and Berserk are like, oh, I'm going to talk about these for a while. Eva and AOT were so much fun. And I know Neon Genesis is a very acquired taste. It's like you either like it or you don't. It's very stylistic, and the style and symbolism are like its main elements. But I love it so much. It's just I like shows that I think going in, I have a blank slate for. I don't have any expectations, and then they just like blossom and you're like, oh my gosh, and it just goes long. But yes, so and that's kind of the thing I liked about Monster, was that, if we're getting back on track with Monster, was the idea that I had no idea what I was walking into, and then it was just the series just kind of blossomed, and you get into the characters and everything, and it's just really, really, really good. Oh yeah, I'm sad that Psychopaths is ending this month. So sad, ending in late June, early July. I'm not ready for it to end. I really love that series quite a bit. It's great. What was your child anime shows that I've seen? Oh man. So Unico was the first thing I ever watched that was anime related. I grew up with Sailor Moon. That was a huge influence. I loved Sailor Moon. It just influenced my appreciation of strong female characters, because it was like the first show I could appreciate all the female characters in it. It also introduced me to the LGBTQ community, and I was like, oh wow, okay. As a kid, which I would highly recommend just for that to any kid to watch. Digimon and Pokemon I watched. Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball I watched. Yu Yu Hakusho. I loved Yu Yu Hakusho. I watched that a lot. Toguro and Genkai. My heart. Love them. That was like my first big ship, maybe. I shipped a lot in Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z and Digimon, but Toguro and Genkai were like a huge ship when I was growing up. I loved them. And then here's the thing: there are two series that I remember watching as a kid that I would love to go back and rewatch as an adult, because I don't remember a lot about them, except that I really thought the show was either really good or I was confused the entire time as a child. One is Fooly Cooly. I remember watching Fooly Cooly in junior high and having no clue what it was about. And then thinking, I'm like, is this a coming of age story? Is this about a teenager going through puberty? I think it is, but I don't quite understand what's happening. So Fooly Cooly, I would definitely like to rewatch as an adult, to go back and be like, oh, this is what it was about. Okay. I would like to do that. And then I would like to rewatch eventually Tenchi Muyo. Tenchi Muyo, I watched in high school, and I loved the design of the characters. I had no clue what was going on. So I would love to get back to those two series eventually on the channel and watch as an adult and be like, oh, okay. But yes, Frank, the Sailor Moon Deke dub is forever in my hearts. It is the dub. It is the only dub. I will not accept anything else other than that Deke dub. It's so freaking good. But yes, Digimon is amazing. Love Digimon, especially I feel like I'm a Digimon snob. I'm a Digimon purist. Only the first two seasons of Digimon. I haven't watched Try yet. That's another one that I need to get back to eventually. But let me get on here. Dan says, will we get to any One Piece content someday? Here's the thing. I definitely want to watch the live action. I reacted to the first season of the live action with my brother, and we had a lot of fun with that. So I would love to keep reacting to the live action series for One Piece. I've kept up with the manga and I've watched the anime, so I wouldn't do a reaction for it. I would eventually, when Oda in 2035 completes the series, when Oda gets to the end of One Piece, I'm sure there will be 1,000 video analyses of One Piece. And so mine would be a drop in the bucket. But I don't know. I would eventually like to do something about One Piece, maybe, as the series goes on. Let me go through here and back up in the chat. At the end of Monster, you see the empty bed, implying, is he dead or not? I like to believe he's alive, but what, he can't just go on killing afterward. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. FR6NZ99. I agree with you with that ending. I think he's alive too. But I believe that he might just go into the shadows. What I like about the end of Monster is that it leaves it very ambiguous. We don't exactly know what is going to happen. And I kind of like that. Usually ambiguous endings are kind of hit or miss for me. I don't know if I'm going to like them or not. But with Monster, I really appreciated it because it kind of does like the story. You don't exactly know what direction it could go in after that, but I don't know. So I do agree with you there. Let me see here. Oh, no, Frank, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to horribly disagree with you. That the 3rd season is what got me to stop watching Digimon because it was retconning so much of the first 2 seasons, and I could not. I was like, "Why is this happening? What are we doing?" I could not. No. The 3rd season ruined that series for me, and I had to stop watching. My brother likes it. My brother likes Tamers. My brother liked what was happening after that, but I was like, "No, I can't." So, I was like, "Mm-mm." The first 2 seasons of Digimon are like my childhood nostalgia, but after season 3, I was like, I stopped. I can't." And Pokemon the game, my brother and I have played like every gen of the game, but I'm not the biggest fan of the anime. It's okay. It's fine. I think that it's okay. The Togepi storyline was like the only one in the Pokemon series I really, really liked. That and the hate that Tracy got. Oh my God, Killer Queen! Johan went to the bathroom to take a number 2. Yes, absolutely. That was it. Oh my God, Killer Queen figured it out. Johan just went to the bathroom. Why are we making such a big deal about this? Why are we making such a big deal about this? Let me see what we've got here. The YouTuber formerly known as Digibro gave a good definition of Fooly Cooly. It's a totally fetishistic art project of an author and a team of visionaries. Well, see, that just makes me want to watch and see if my opinions would vary. Hmm. Frank, yeah, I'm all about fresh takes, but what I don't like is when a series retcons something that made the original 2 series really good, and the fact that they suddenly were just like, "No, these storylines weren't real. That thing that you really appreciated and loved from the first 2 seasons, that wasn't a thing." And I'm like, "But it was." So, I don't know. I for me as a kid, and I'm a Taurus, so you get me into change is not something that Romania Black adapts well to. So for me as a kid, I hated it. But maybe if I go back and rewatch it as an adult, I will have a better appreciation for it. Maybe. Amnaf says Johan went to get cigs and milk and left. That's exactly what Johan did. Yes, Johan just left the screen. Like, why are y'all making a big deal out of this? Johan, like, he's going. Why did they stop the anime and manga then? He was gonna come back. What are you talking about? What's the deal? He just went to use the bathroom. Come on, guys. Come on, y'all. Gurdim says I watched Pokemon back then and Digimon and oh my God, Monster Rancher. My brother and I thought we were the only 2 that knew that Monster Rancher existed. But the best is Meta. Are you talking about Metabots or Metarot? We knew Metabots, but not that. Frank Ace's Leomon goes with the flow. Yeah, okay. No, fair. Totally makes sense. Yes. But yeah, I thought we were the only ones that knew Monster Rancher existed. Like, Gurdim, you've made like it's one of those things like when you're from the 90s or the early 2000s, you grew up in that era before the internet was really a huge thing. There were some shows like Metabots and Monster Rancher that you watched, but no one else knew about. And you're like, was this a fever dream? Did this happen? So yeah, I'm glad you all know about that. My brother loves Monster Rancher and Metabots. He's a huge fan. Like, we had all the toys, the Metabots toys. We like grew up on that. That was so much fun. Brian Settles, the way the word Chad is used is so bizarre to me. I understand how it's evolved over the years. You can't really understand how silly it is to an ace guy like me. Yeah, no, Brian, I'm on that spectrum too, so I get what you're saying. I'm like, yeah. Let me see here. Tamers is done by the same people who did Serial Experiments Lane. Interesting. Okay. Good to know if I get that series on the spinny wheel. Good to know that. I may have to tie in Digimon with that, which would be a lot of fun. All right. Interesting. The Fox Box. Yes. There's so many like shows from the 90s. They're so long running, but they would be fun to talk about. Yes, I have seen Full Metal Alchemist. It was one of my before I started the channel, it was one of my favorites. Now it's like it's in the good great range. What I really love is the mangaka for Full Metal Alchemist. Not only being a woman, but being someone that grew up on a farm, I can relate to her so much. And so I really, really appreciate that about her. But yeah, Full Metal Alchemist is great. I feel like Full Metal Alchemist is a great series to be a gateway for anime for people because it's not like it introduces ideas with anime of being like having monsters or things that aren't quite the norm, but it's not so it's very accessible, which I think is really good. What are my all-time favorites? That's an insane question. That's like picking your favorite song. That's horribly complicated, and I don't know if I can answer that right now. I don't know if I can answer that in the moment. I'd have to think about that. Oh my gosh, Gurdeem. Which Full Metal Alchemist of the two animes? Okay, here's the thing. Here is the thing. And I know I watched that Mother's Basement. I kind of watched the Mother's Basement video about the lost media just because I wanted to see their take on Full Metal Alchemist. Um, I personally disagree with them, respectfully, of course. Um, I am a purist when it comes to like adapting the manga to anime. If it's a great manga, why would you change it? And I like the manga a lot. And here's my thing. I do agree that the directing of the series might be better in the 2003 version, but having read the manga, I was really excited to watch the anime, and when they got to the point where they didn't adapt it and they just changed it, I was like, I was like, why would you do that? It's kind of like if you really love a story. Here's the thing. I feel like you have to go through it one of two ways. If you read a manga first, there wasn't manga to adapt. Yeah. Here's the thing. By the time that I had read the manga, it had already been completed. So then when I went back and watched the show, I was like, "Oh, why'd you change it?" And at that point I didn't realize that they didn't have stuff to adapt. It's kind of like number 6. With number 6, I watched the anime first and I was like, "Oh." And then you read the manga and realize they didn't have manga to adapt at that point. They just made decisions and you were like, "Oh, okay, well that makes sense now. I get why you did it." I feel like that's why when people ask me to read a manga before watching the anime, I'm like, I don't want to do that because I would rather watch the anime first and it be a really amazing thing and then go back and read the manga and be like, oh, this is also amazing and gives us all this extra stuff that the anime didn't. So I feel like when you do it that way, it works a lot better. You can do the anime first, you can really enjoy it, then you can go back and read the manga and be like, oh, well, here's this really cool alternate side of it, right? Whereas I feel like if you read the manga first and then the anime doesn't live up to your expectations, then it's kind of like when you read a book first and then go watch the movie and you're upset. You're like, I feel like that's a situation as well. So yeah, it's like, so yeah, I personally like the Brotherhood version more because it's more faithful to the manga, but I do appreciate what the 2003 one was trying to do when it didn't have manga to adapt. So there's that. Um, Hi, Romania. How are you doing? Oh, Cookielicious. I'm doing great. We've been talking randomly about Monster and Pluto a lot, but also veering off into many, many different directions, which is fine. It's a Saturday morning. Why not? It's like Saturday morning cartoons. Why not veer off into a different direction? Um, yeah. So I think that the good thing is the 2003 version and Brotherhood both exist. So you kind of get to pick your poison, whichever one you want to choose. But I do like Full Metal Alchemist as a story as a whole. The ending of it is great. Which the ending of Brotherhood and the ending of the manga, that climax, yes, I still love it so much. As an ace person, do you like how many shonen main characters are kind of ace coded? Luffy, Gon, maybe Goku. Oh yeah, Luffy for sure. I kind of in coming into realizing my own sexuality, I kind of Luffy, it made me appreciate Luffy so much more. Now, granted, in fiction, I love shipping. I'm a romantic person in terms of like I'm not like a sexual person, but I'm a very romantic person. Like I love romance, I love shipping. I think it's so much fun, and especially in fiction because it's not me. So I love shipping other people and other things that are not myself. So ace coded means like you're on the asexual spectrum, or it's like coded for asexuality. Like there's not actually a sexual attraction. And Luffy is I love shipping Luffy with Boa all day long, but I feel like Boa, one of the reasons that she likes Luffy is because he doesn't like sexualize her. And that's why their ship works for me because I'm like, yes, she doesn't want to be sexualized or objectified, and Luffy doesn't. So it's perfect. Like Luffy would just sit there eating food and be like, "Hey, Boa, how you doing?" And she'd be like, "Ah, yes, please." So love it. What else do we have? Top 10 in any order. I mean, I do love Attack on Titan. As much as you all won't believe me, I like Berserk a lot. just making me struggle so much. Berserk has put me through the ringer. I feel like Berserk has given me the hardest time of any media I've ever encountered. I love it, but I'm also like, Miura, anytime now, you can quit. But I would just say Neon Genesis is definitely up there for me. Welcome, Struggler. Yes, indeed. That's hard because then you have genres, right? So I love sports anime like Free Iwatobi Swim Club, Run with the Wind, Kuroko's Basketball, Ace of the Diamond. I love all of those, but they're kind of in their own little category. They're often sports anime world. And then you have series like Neon Genesis, Berserk. You have series like Attack on Titan, Psychopaths. So yeah, it's kind of like a top 10 even. I don't think it's good enough. I think you need like a top 20, you know. So yes. What else do we have here? Watching anime first is often better to not be disappointed. Yeah, I agree. And I, even with Donmai that I do, like I've been doing a lot of MXTX works like Scum Villain and Heaven Official's Blessing and Modao Zushi. I definitely always want to watch the Donghua first because then I can go back and read the novel and get like more out of it. So I definitely agree with that. Planet Test, they have that on there. What are some American cartoons that you like? Oh my gosh. I watched a ton of cartoons growing up as a kid. I was raised in the late 80s, early 90s. So Gargoyles, Batman, Darkwing Duck, Let's Get Dangerous, Chippendales Rescue Rangers. My friend and I, we were getting ice cream the other day, and I was like, for some reason, the Gummy Bears theme song like came in my head, like gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. And my friend looked at me and was like, are you talking about Gummy Bears from the 90s? And I was like, yes. So it's like any of those series, like Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, I watched the hell out of, and Cartoon Network as a kid. So all of those, you can name it, I've probably watched it as a kid if it was from the 90s. Absolutely. What we say here, Boa and Luffy dynamic. It's so wholesome, yes. And I multi-ship in One Piece, so you can ship a whole lot of people. But the Boa and Luffy dynamic, it's so cute. I love it. And plus, if he becomes Pirate King, Boa as the Pirate Queen, yes, please, give me that. We have here the real Berserk fan experience. The real Berserk fan experience is me in volumes 22 and 23 sobbing my eyes out and questioning life. Yep. How do I feel? Berserk is the one series where I have sobbed and had an existential crisis and a panic attack on screen and still want to keep going. So that's it, basically. Oh, Silver Spoon. See, I read the manga for Silver Spoon and I freaking love it because I grew up on a farm. So I loved it because Silver Spoon, seeing a Japanese perspective on agriculture is so incredible to me. And I was like, oh, this is so neat. I'm so fascinated. But then there were so many aspects of that series that I could relate to growing up. With that, it's so good. I haven't watched the anime, but I love the manga. It's so great. Hey Arnold. Oh, Hey Arnold's great. Olga and Helga, The Shrine. Oh, love it. Yes, Hey Arnold's a classic. Absolutely love it. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, getting back to actual Urasawa business. Brian Settles asks, what Urasawa character do you think has the best nose? What a great question. That's so on point. Very, very important. I made fun of him for his nose in the first 10 seconds that I met him, but it is his best feature, and that's Grimmer. Grimmer has the best nose. Are you kidding? It's like he has a nose. He knows all the things. Absolutely. Grimmer is amazing. Best nose. Yukimura did, okay, referring to Berserk, the 97 finale. Referring to volumes 22 and 23. Yikes. Yes. Welcome to me sobbing. I can't go back. I told everybody in the Discord, I feel bad because volume 22 is coming out on YouTube today and volume 23 is coming out on Patreon. I haven't gone back and rewatched. Usually to give you all an insight, when I'm about to watch another episode of a series that's on my channel, I will go back and re-listen to, because I watch usually one episode a week for series. I don't binge watch. I know a lot of reactors will like binge watch series. Like I've seen some reactors, you can kind of tell they're wearing the same clothes. So you're like, oh, they've watched 3 or 4 episodes of that series at a time for reacting. And I, for one, could not do that because one, I don't have that time to sit down and block out for 3 to 4 episodes of reaction and an hour-long discussion at a time. I can't do that. But also, usually after watching an episode, I need to like decompress. Usually after an episode of reaction and discussion, I've got to like decompress and then come back to it a week later. So usually before I will react, I'll go back and rewatch that last week's discussion to kind of refresh myself on the characters and what we're talking about. But with Berserk, I have not rewatched volumes 21, 22, or 23. I can't do it. I sobbed editing those videos, and so I can't do it. So there's that. Ugh. What we have here, Kooky says, I really hope that you can have a Heaven Officials Blessing based live stream in the future. Yes, I know I've done a Modao Zushi live stream. And I definitely will for Scum Villain, because Scum Villain sadly only has the book and Donghua adaptations. I usually like doing live streams for series when I've completed them in full, but I definitely would love to do a Donmai one eventually. I'm waiting on the Heaven Officials Blessing audio dramas to come out before I do one for it. Gurdon may sound out of the blue, but to me, Urasawa as a mangaka is the best at writing non-Japanese characters and using non-Japan settings. That's a really good point. I love that. Yes. So I really like the concept of Urasawa and how they wrote using like Germany and using they use Prague as the background. Like I actually really like that. I like the idea that Urasawa seems someone that they like travel. And so I think they did a really good job with it. I agree. That's such a cool question to point out. I like it. Ochana nose is top tier. We'll agree with you on that, Frank. Absolutely. Have you ever thought the thought, if the creator would change this aspect of a show? That's an interesting question, XCSSD. If I could change the aspect of a show, I don't know any that I could think of in general that I would completely change. There's been parts of shows that I haven't liked, but that's a really good question. Someone way up there asked about Code Geass, and I'm just now remembering that. Code Geass, I get so many requests to react to it, and it's like the one series that I have like the box set of it. I don't even know if I can get to it here, but I have the box set underneath of Code Geass. I really liked Code Geass. I think the only thing I remember of Code Geass is the ending. And that's what I remember most about it. And I enjoy that. That and Johnny Young Bosch plays Lelouch in the English dub. And I was obsessed with Johnny Young Bosch when he was playing Ichigo. So those are the two aspects of that series I remember the most. But it was good. I remember liking it. The ending I love. The ending is like, yes. But it is definitely, here's the thing. Code Geass is an example. It's kind of like Death Note. There's a term that we use in my literature classes. It's called a colossal protagonist. Shakespeare kind of coined it in Western literature, but a colossal protagonist is where the protagonist is what you remember most about the show. And I know I love L to pieces, but when you think of Death Note, the first thing you think of is Light. And probably L. So maybe there are colossal protagonists. But when you think of Code Geass, you think of Lelouch. And they are definitely main character focused. But yeah, I don't know, Dan, when you bring that up with the fan service, I have very nostalgia goggles with Code Geass. I remember watching it in high school, and I really, really liked it in high school. I don't know if watching it as an adult, if I would have the same opinion of it. So that kind of leaves me like, I don't know if I want to go back to it because I really like it from when I watched it as a kid. I don't know if I would have the same view of it now. Let me see on here. I have not seen School Rumble, but I've had it recommended. Well, Citizen of Peace, you will be very, very happy to know that the Apothecary Diaries, I actually had a poll on Patreon about a month back, and the Apothecary Diaries won like outright. It had like so many recommendations. So once Cycle Pass is over in late July, I'm going to be starting the Apothecary Diaries. So yay, that is going to be a replacement on my Wednesdays. So it's going to be Wednesdays Apothecary Diaries. It's going to be Wednesday Wellness. That's what we're going to call it, right? Wednesday Wellness. Certified drug dealers should have won. The poll's still ongoing, right? But yes. Yeah, Apothecary Diaries will start on Wednesday, so I'm pretty excited about that. Let me see. Anybody else have any other comments about it? Let me ask you all this. Those of you that has anybody read Another Monster? Because I told everybody in the Discord, I'm like, by the time I do the live stream, I will have read it. And that was a bold-faced lie. I have not had time to read it. I pulled it up, so I may go back through it at some point over the next couple weeks. And then if I see any little nuggets, I might put them in the Discord. But I basically did not have anything else to add with it yet. Is there any part of Another Monster that I should look up? Because I have the Wikipedia page listed here, and I will paste it into the Discord chat and put it on there. Let me see. Is Another Monster like a coda to the series? I feel like it is. The way that the Wikipedia page looks, it looks as if it's got two different parts, and they're all kind of like talking about the characters. So I don't know if there's any like extra stuff here. For example, there is a section about Tenma in here. And the wiki talks about the chapter being dedicated to Tenma with facts about him. So he's born on January 2nd of 1958. His father was a director and manager of a hospital, and his mother was an editor for a medical publisher. Oh, okay. So they talk about in here about them being divorced. Interesting. And he has two older half brothers. Interesting. So there's some like nuggets of information here where they try to look up some stuff about Tenma and different characters. So that's interesting. I might have to go back through here and just see what it reveals about these characters. Interesting. Okay. I don't know if any of you had any comments, or I remember when I was finishing up Monster. When I was finishing up Monster, people were like, "Oh, well, have you read Another Monster?" And that there's some like spoilery stuff in there about the series. So I'm like, okay. So I might have to go back and check that. And I've moved the Monster and Pluto channel on Discord into the finished column. But oh, the Eva chapter. Okay, Sunspots. All right, well, let's go to it. Let's get on the Eva chapter. I'm gonna go to it. I'm like, if anybody has any recommendations on chapters for me to look at. Oh, the Eva chapter part is the summary of it's pretty short. So let me see on here. Weber is somebody in the story that's interviewing all of these people. Asked why she and Dr. Tenma had their engagement canceled, and she said it was for her father's ambitions. She said that she really loved Tenma and that Tenma wanted to marry her because he needed her to make decisions for him. Oh, the shade. Okay, all right. But her father needed a right-hand man and she wanted security. Dr. Tenma grew cold to her when the engagement was canceled, even when Eva came pleading to him to take her back again. She was married 3 times after that, and her divorce settlements provided her lavish lifestyle. Oh, so she confirmed being a witness to the murder of Junkers and her knowledge of Johann's existence. She also said that she consented to his interview because she was guilty of not testifying on Dr. Tenma's innocence and for the lives lost during the height of Johann's activities. She was able to recall Dr. Tenma's favorite song, which was Al Green's "Let's Stay Together." Oh, nice. Some people were saying that in the comments, so that's cool. She said Dr. Tenma longed for regular life, and she did not seek many friends, probably because of the stressful life as a surgeon. He only opened up to Becker, who was not as good as him, but who he treated as equal. She said she wanted Tenma because he let her be independent. He's a very accepting person, never turns anyone away, and that's why he's respected and praised as a person. Oh, interesting. Okay. Were there any other ones on Eva? It doesn't look like it. I think that's interesting, that the idea of him wanting her to make decisions for him, which honestly, from Tenma at the very beginning of the story, I could really see that, because he just kind of was like going through the motions and was just doing his job as a surgeon, but didn't really have any, like, his ambition wasn't quite there, which is why he kind of turns down the position, or seems to like not be mad at losing the position as the director later on. Was there anything else, Sunspots, that you thought I should know about that chapter that would be interesting that they kind of point out? The wiki doesn't exactly give any more than that about Eva's chapter, but that's interesting. Is there any other chapters y'all have from that wiki too that you want me to look at as well while I'm here? Again, I might go back and look at this page later on and kind of posit some things about it. Oh, we have here. If Reagan is a trash king, then Eva is a trash queen. You know what? I love Reagan in Mob Psycho. So And I really came to like Eva's character in Monster as well. When we started Monster, I could not stand Eva. I was like, nope. And I thought that she was going to end up being like Timma's downfall and she was going to have all this stuff happen against him. And then as the series went on, especially once it got to the Martin storyline, I loved Eva's character. I really came to like what she represented and kind of how her personality changed. And she's kind of similar to Reagan in that sense. Reagan and Eva both come across as kind of like Trash King and Trash Queen. But then when you get to know their characters, they have so much underneath the surface and they're kind of endearing. And I really liked it. Yeah. Yeah, into their dynamic potentially. I honestly, you know what? I'm not mad that Eva and Timma aren't together. I think it's for the best. I think that they kind of give me Ugetsu and Akihiro vibes from Given a little bit. I'm glad that they're both doing well independently, but I'm also glad they're not still together because I just don't think it was, good for their character. Frank, I love when mangaka adds those aspects to their characters, like a favorite song, food, etc., to give them more life. Oh yeah, I grew up reading Bleach, and one of my favorite things was when Kubo would have like a profile and would talk about like their favorite song or the song that's like their theme song or like their favorite colors and things like that. Like that part was really interesting. I loved that. One of the more telling things about Eva in the series is when she mentioned that Timmo would kiss her. Yeah. That part was like, okay. I was like, oh, that was the one moment of the series where I was like, oh, this is a little bit more of an adult series because we're talking about something a little more sexual like that. Early Bleach. Oh, okay. Look, y'all can't see it because it's on that shelf over there, but I have like 50 volumes of Bleach over there. I was maybe the biggest Bleach defender throughout the early 2000s. Bleach was like the first series I started collecting and getting like heavily involved in. And so that has been like one of my things. I've been trying for the last year and a half to like construct a Bleach video, but it's just so big. It's so huge. I don't know if you watch her, but I think her name is Jennifer. I'm probably getting it wrong, but she does, let me look up real quick. What is her name? What is her name? It is like her name is I want to look up. She did a video on the Vampire Diaries. It was like insanely long. What is her name? I'll find her. Okay, yeah, Jenny Nicholson. She does these insanely long like video analyses. Jenny Nicholson does, and I respect her so much for it. And I feel like when Uramichi Onisan is over, I might get back into the Thousand Year Blood War arc for Bleach so I can finish it. And then I want to do just this massive 7-hour video about Bleach and all of the things about it that make it great, that make it like cheesy, that make it insane. I want to do a giant video about it, but I don't think I can do it justice until I've completed the anime journey with it and then go from there. But it will likely be, I was like, maybe I could just do the Bleach video in parts and just add it all together and that'll be it. And so I think that's what I'm going to end up having to do. But yes, the profile pages of Bleach, H Banana 7, you got me on a tangent. It's so good. So yeah, is there any other part of another monster that you all want me to see or talk about? I know some people were saying that there was some stuff with Johan, some interesting information. So like I said, I'll probably go back to the Discord with that and put it on there afterwards. But I really am happy that Monster won a year and a half ago and then I got to watch it in full. I love it. I've been trying to recommend it to like my dad and other people. I'm like, look, if you're not a big anime person, Monster is so accessible and it's so realistic that I think you would like it and all this. And 20th Century Boys, I know that Urasawa, it's like professional account. I'm seeing your comment there. It's one that I eventually want to have on either the manga poll or to wait till the anime comes out with. One thing I will say is that with Monster, I was so convinced that there was going to be like this supernatural anime element to it. I was so convinced it was going to happen. And I kept telling myself it's going to eventually come true. But it's a gritty, realistic anime. And it almost doesn't even feel like an anime sometimes. Like people were talking about adapting it into live action. Like I think it was Guillermo del Toro trying to do like an adaptation of Monster. I honestly don't want that. I think that Monster is a great anime by itself. So I don't feel, I'm one of those people like when people talk about live action adaptations, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Or I get why there's I get why there is a One Piece live action adaptation because it's basically like an abridged. It's like One Piece Kai is literally the live action adaptation. And so I get why it exists and I appreciate it. But I don't think that Monster needs to be adapted into a live action. Like Money Gambler says, it is more grounded than most live action shows. And yeah, the Liebert twins would be totally uncastable. I'm just like, no, I don't think they need to do it. I think it's perfectly fine on its own. Just I think that American audiences or Western audiences or the mass media in general just needs to accept the fact that you can watch an animated show and treat it seriously is what I think needs to happen. So, yeah. H Banana 7, what series would you recommend to someone who is new to anime? Oh, again, I feel like it would be what genre you're looking at. So I think Monster's a really good anime to get into if you're new to anime. I think that's a good one. I honestly think Death Note is a really good kind of if you like mysteries and you're okay with some psychological elements and supernatural. Death Note's a good one to get into. That's accessible. But I think if you were gonna do like a sports anime, I would say Ace the Diamond is my favorite. Ace the Diamond's my favorite sports anime, but it is so long and it is a slow burn. Ace the Diamond is such a slow burn. It's so worth it. It's worth it if you can get through it, but it is a slow burn. So I would say Haikyuu would be a good like it's accessible. It's very commercial. Haikyuu is a good one. Kuroko's Basketball is a good one to get into anime because it's something relatable. It's sports. I think that's why Haikyuu is so huge is because it's so accessible. Although Free Iwatobi Swim Club it holds a special place in my heart, but it is a little acquired. So yes. Let me see here. People confuse Monster as an anime. People directly compare it with Death Note, but Monster is superior. I mean, I think that it's all subjective. Fiction is subjective. We all have our favorites. We all have our own. I feel like comparing Monster to Death Note is apples to oranges. They have a totally different agenda and they both are pursuing that in very different ways. Although Johan and Light Yagami are both two horsemen of the I did nothing wrong apocalypse. So they are similar in that vein. But yes, I agree with Dan that Monster is much closer. Vinland Saga is another one that is a really good accessible anime to get into. Vinland Saga is so good. So good. But yes. Eva, it's just a refreshing Eva is a refreshing woman character. Most writers would have left Eva as the stereotypical gold digger. Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think that Eva was coming across at the beginning as the gold digger. And then as the series went on, she developed so much more depth as a character. And I really, really, really like that. So yeah. Let me see. Have you ever tried to watch? Oh, there's Ruby. See Ruby in the background there. Have you tried to watch any K-drama shows? Here's the thing. Yeah, one, I don't have time outside of my channel to really watch anything except what's on my channel. I know that there are some good K-dramas out there. The only like C drama I've seen is the Danmai is Untamed, which because it coincided with Modao Zushi, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't want to open up my channel to live action and that stuff because it would just be a can of worms. It's like, you know, that there's so many options with anime alone. If I started incorporating live action, it would just be overwhelming and I would never get to watch anything because it would just be an endless sea of things. So I do like occasionally putting in some Western animation like Has Been Hotel as part of the channel because I'm genuinely interested in it and I want to see it. I watched Nimona on my own time a little while ago, like during Oscar season. It was really good. I liked Nimona a lot. It was cute. But I had read the manga before or had read the comic before, the graphic novels, and they were great. Yeah. K-drama I recommend for Mania and My Liberation Notes. Oh yeah. Vinland Saga is a masterpiece. After seeing this year's Crunchyroll, it's the majority. Well, okay, here's the thing. I love JJK. I love Jujutsu Kaisen so much. It's one of my favorite series to react to because it's just so much fun. Vinland Saga, again, we're talking about kiwis and dragon fruit. We're talking about two series that are both high quality. I feel like what gets me is, and I do love Jujutsu Kaisen a lot. And I love Vinland Saga a lot. I feel like sometimes Vinland Saga doesn't get the recognition it deserves because it is not Jujutsu Kaisen. It's so much more analytical and it's so more like getting down and dirty and serious with the themes of it. Whereas Jujutsu Kaisen does pose some amazing themes and some amazing thoughts to be thought about it. But it also, I think people kind of, you can either watch Jujutsu Kaisen for just the shonen battle action and you don't have to dig deeper into the themes if you don't want to, and you still get satisfaction out of it. Whereas Vinland Saga is intended to be watched for the themes. Like if you're watching Vinland Saga for the battles, you're not watching it for the right reason, I don't think. But that's my own personal take on it. But yeah, they're very different. Yeah, Monster and Death Note, Vinland Saga, and Jujutsu Kaisen, they're very, very different, right? I feel like Death Note is self-aware. It very much knows what it is, but I do like it. Snow Days, speaking of Eva, I think that's one of Monster's greatest strengths. Characters. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That would be jokes or tropes in other stories. Eva, Grim, Lunge, Grimmer, Sook, and it asks you to take them seriously. Oh, very, very much so. I feel like one of the things I loved about Monster was one, it could take a character you've only met and will only meet for an episode and make you love that character and appreciate them 100%. And I think too, it takes stereotypes of characters in other series and then throws it on its head. And you're like, oh, even Johan, even the antagonist of the series, you have all of these expectations of his character, and then he completely subverts that. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. The characterization is just so good in Monster. It's amazing. Crunchyroll's award system is flawed to begin with. I mean, any award system, especially if your award system is open to anyone, is going to be subject to follow trends or get like a certain effect to it. Frank A says Pluto is interesting, a time capsule and the thoughts of US's actions in the Middle East at the time, and it's being adapted to anime years after. How do you feel Urasawa's thoughts and feelings hold up? Well, that's so interesting. One thing about Pluto that I liked was the fact that even though the manga was written in 2003 and you knew what it was coming from, there are still shades of previous conflicts. Like someone commented saying that Pluto was not only commenting and using references to the Iraq War, but was also even talking about the Persian War. There's elements of World War as war. And the sad thing is that no matter what time period the conflict is, a lot of the same themes and a lot of the same messages are going to pop up. So the sad thing is that Urasawa's thoughts and feelings hold up because we're still dealing with the same types of themes and messages. It's just a different time and a different place. So that's kind of the ironically and horrifically timelessness about Urasawa's message. But I do like the idea when it talks about the AI and robotics, because that's something that's very relevant now, that is up and coming technologically, that kind of it melds a lot of timeless and relevant conversations together, which is interesting. I do eventually want to see Ghost in the Shell, a professional account. I really, really want to see Ghost in the Shell at some point. But that's going to be down the line. And then Gerdim says, in a way, Vinland Saga does that thing too. It gives new characters that last for a short time but matter. Absolutely. Yes, 100%. Yep. And so, and here's the thing. I feel like with any remakes, it's not necessarily that the animation, I don't like that argument that it's not as good as it used to be because of the animators. I feel like there's still as talented animators now as there were back then. That's a little bit of nostalgia goggles for me. But here's my thing. It's the idea that it's a remake. It's not new. Anytime there's a remake, how can there be that same spirit that there was in the original? How can there be? Because you're not like, it's not something new that you're creating that has this life and energy to it. You're just retreading and retracing over something that's already existed. So of course there wouldn't be that same energy. Of course there wouldn't be that same quality unless there's that spirit of engagement and spirit of love with it. I don't know. And Cyber, you're just coming in to make a joke. How dare you? Troll! Troll in the chat. You have to know Cyber from Patreon to understand that humor. Mm-hmm. Dan, am I allowed to hate? No. And that's the thing about it. I feel like I've learned on this channel, there was a series I did not end up liking. And after that, I was like, ooh, if I get to a point where I'm not enjoying the series, I'm just gonna have to like stop it and go away from it. So yeah, I think it's fine. I definitely can see why people would like Pluto. I can see why people wouldn't like Pluto. I personally enjoyed it. Do I like it more than Monster? No, I don't. But am I glad that I saw it? Yeah, I'm glad I saw it now. I'm glad I saw it now after coming off of watching Monster, because I feel like if I had waited and waited for Pluto until it won a poll and time had elapsed between seeing Monster and watching Pluto, I don't think I would have liked it as much. So I think if you're going to watch Pluto and you're concerned about it, watch Monster and then watch Pluto. Or watch Pluto and then watch Monster, but watch them back to back. So it's like the Barbie Oppenheimer effect. You're going to get the most bang for your buck if you watch these two series back to back rather than apart. Mm-hmm. Hello. Thank you, professional account. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the support. That's awesome. A lot of good animators are the ones from back then, but time, styles, and peoples change. Yeah, and it's all, I see a lot of artists and up and coming animators that are really good. And so I don't want to dissuade from that. And I feel like we are going to see in our lifetime, hopefully, some really great animators and styles up and coming. There's some animators that I'm watching now. One that I follow on Patreon, she's working on this series called Spectrum. She's an animator that has worked on Pixar and Disney films before. She's so good. And I feel like there's so many good animators that are out there. They're just going to have to get their moment. And then we're going to consider them to be the next one, right? It's just going to be one of these. But I do think that the idea of remake culture is something that does limit us a lot from having new and really good ideas happen. So we'll see. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. The way Urasawa writes mystery in Pluto. Oh, so interesting. I will say this about Pluto. There were certain plot lines and storylines that I felt were easier to figure out. So I won't say any more to that. You'd have to see the reactions, but that's an interesting take on there. Professional account, which do you prefer more, shonen or seinen? I think now as an adult, seinen. I think now as an adult, I like more. I feel like as I've gotten older, I want more mature stories that I can relate to. I think growing up, I grew up with shonen primarily, and so there's still like a nostalgic factor. I still like it. I get shonen. I appreciate it. But I like seinen because it can delve into some more mature themes than shonen can oftentimes, and it takes more risks. Seinen takes risks because it knows it doesn't have to necessarily follow into a formula, or at least that's my thoughts about it. So yeah. But yeah, so I've got about 5 minutes left. If y'all have any comments or questions about, I know we didn't delve too crazy a lot into Monster and Pluto. I don't want to get too much into spoilers because I want people to watch Monster and Pluto. I think that they're both good shows and I would definitely recommend them and see what you all think about them. Now I do love sports anime. Sports anime may be my favorite genre. I think that sports anime is just my favorite. Cyber right now after Pluto, I have Uramichi Onisan, which is a comedy series that I'm reacting to right now on Fridays. That one is the one that's replaced Pluto for now. After that, I don't know whether I will start Bleach or what I will do. I haven't decided post Pluto yet. Where I'm only a few episodes into Uramichi, so I don't know exactly what's going to replace Uramichi yet. We'll just have to see. And Dan, to your point about Monster making you cry versus Pluto, here's the thing. I talked about this in the Pluto reactions, and Monsters made me cry as well. But that's a 74 episode series that gives you time to get invested and engaged with the characters. And Pluto's only 8 episodes. So I didn't really cry during Pluto either because I didn't have a lot of time with it. So I would say if anybody's on the fence about Monster, watch it. Watch it for sure. I think that it's a classic. It deserves to be watched. It deserves to be preserved. I'm glad that the only thing I hate about Monster is that you don't have it on DVD or Blu-ray. How is that a thing? How is that possible? It's on Netflix right now that you can stream, but how is Monster not on Blu-ray or DVD? It is so frustrating and I hate it. I'm like, I want it on Blu-ray or DVD so I can buy it. And that is so frustrating. Like, how long did we have to wait till Berserk 97 got on DVD or Blu-ray? I'm like, get Monster on there too, right? Get Monster. So yes, H Banana 7 is right. After Psychopaths, Apothecary Diaries is replacing it. And after Puella Magi Madoka Magica, Revolutionary Girl Utina is replacing that series. And those are the only ones I have replacing series right now. I am very soon. I'm going to be doing a video at the end of June. That's my July update. And in July update, I'm going to be doing a wheel spin. So when I do my July update video, y'all have to watch it because I'm going to be doing a wheel spin to determine which 3 series are going to replace Frieren back to back. And you all on Patreon will get to vote for the order after I do that. So that'll be in the July video that I will hopefully record at the end of June and put up probably on Patreon and YouTube at the same time so that people have time to get on Patreon if they want to vote in early July, but that's the plan. So yeah, Discotheque and G Kids are doing the Lord's work keeping classic anime alive. Yes, Discotheque actually is the reason I have Unico on DVD on my shelf over there, is because Discotheque got the rights to be able to do that. And it's so crazy. It's like a lot of anime and manga are disappearing, not because they're bad or because they're not available, but just because nobody owns the rights and nobody wants to invest in making the product. So they just kind of disappear. And it's insane to me. So definitely support Monster if you can. And that way, hopefully we can get like a DVD release at some point. So yeah, I agree with Snow Dazed. If Berserk and Evangelion got releases, there's still hope for Monster. Oh my God, Cyber Q, cosplay your dog as Kyubey and let him decide what to watch. I have had Huckleberry decide what to watch in the past, so that's not necessarily off, but he tried to destroy that Kyubey doll the first time I opened it, so if I tried to make him cosplay as Kyubey, he'd probably rip up the outfit, for sure. Yes, Dan, I've only watched episode 1 of Utina so far, but I will say in that reaction, I made the comment that Utina is like if Neon Genesis Evangelion, Sailor Moon, and Puella Magi Madoka Magica had a baby. So that seems fair. If you cosplayed as a monster character, who would it be? Oh, I would definitely want to cosplay as, here's the thing, there's not a lot of female characters in Monster, so it's a little bit harder. If I was being realistic, I would cosplay as Lottie, if I was being realistic. But if I had the choice of cosplaying as a character, I would probably try to do Grimmer. But I don't know how possible it is. I also look terrible in blonde wigs, so I don't think that would be a good idea. Let me see here. Professional account. What do you think of Vagabond? Here's the thing. I've heard Vagabond is amazing. That was kind of the thing. I feel like Urasawa, if we're going to compare, I feel like when people ask me to react to all the Urasawa creations, I feel the same way about Inoue, because I reacted to Slam Dunk and I love Slam Dunk. And then I also am reacting and waiting on Urasawa or Inoue. I'm waiting on Inoue to finish Real. Real is amazing. And I would watch an anime adaptation for Real in a heartbeat. That sports anime has made me cry so much. Killer Queen, I keep waiting on volume 16 of Real to happen. I've reacted to the first 15 volumes of Real. It's so freaking good. I keep waiting for Real volume 16 to come out. When it does, I will react to it in a heartbeat because it's such a good series. I highly recommend Real. It's a sports anime, but it's also like a psychological character dive that's so well done. But if you are waiting, if you're the type of person that doesn't like waiting on manga, then I wouldn't recommend Real, because it's like I've waited 2 years for volume 16 and it's still not here. So yeah. I was shocked how loyal to the manga the monster anime are. Are there any other adaptations of anime you can think of that nearly are close to the source? Well, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is really close to the source. If you want to do that. Attack on Titan is pretty close to the source. There's some stuff left out and changed, but I don't know. I don't think I'm a good person to ask that question for, because there's a lot of anime I've watched that I've not seen the manga adaptation, so I can't really speak too closely to it. I need you to cosplay Johan so you can pull it off. Oh, thank you. I look terrible in blonde wigs. Absolutely awful. But I would like to try that one day. Maybe I could try it. I keep wanting to do Android 18 from Dragon Ball Z, but I look terrible in blonde. I was a blonde once. It was a bad decision. I would like to cosplay as Trunks, though. Usually I like gender bending cosplay. I like cosplaying as male characters because gender bending them is a lot of fun and getting to dress up as them is great. So also screw gender. So whatever. I can wear guys' clothes. You can't stop me. So, all right. Well, I don't know if there's any other questions you all have. I'll take like one more question about it. Slam Dunk was a cult. I do love Slam Dunk a lot. It's really good. It's not my favorite sports anime or manga now that I've seen several of them, but it's such a classic. It's definitely a recommended one. I would recommend it. But eventually I'd like to get to Vagabond if it ever gets finished, or Vagabond. I got one more question about Monster Pluto, and then I'm going to sign off so I can take my dogs out and get ready to work on Berserk this afternoon. But any other questions? You could do Nina and Johan at the same time and do a wig reveal. Yes, as a Drag Race fan, that is the one plot point of Monster that I will never forget. That moment in that episode with the wig reveal, I was like, that was like maybe one of my favorite like twists in anime that I've seen. When they do like this, when they do the stupid top 10 videos, like top 10 anime betrayals, top 10 anime reveals, that one is up there because it was so unexpected and it so fits his character and it makes sense in the context of the story so well. It's so canon and perfect. Yes, that was an amazing moment. Loved that wig. And then I'll just lip sync to whip my hair back and forth and we'll call it a day. Johan is so iconic with so little screen time. Absolutely. That is something that's so, so true. Oh, thank you, Frank. Have a groovy weekend as well. Yes, the Man Bond link in the Monster Discord, I would love that. And I am going to go through slowly but surely and look at another monster and probably post it in the Discord as well to keep the channel alive. Oh, thank you. Get my screen right. Lapras is my favorite Pokemon, so I have to rep Lapras for sure. Lapras is my fave, so got to absolutely do that for sure. But Lorelai, I've also cosplayed as Lorelai before, so she is definitely one of my favorite Elite Four to cosplay as. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, for real. If you are on Patreon, tomorrow the Unico Fantastic Adventures of Unico reaction is going to be out, and then the following weekend is going to be the Island of Magic, which I had never seen before doing the reaction. Oh my god, it is like tripping balls, and I had so much fun during those two movie reactions. So I'm so ready. The Island Magic is insanity and insane. I didn't have trouble recording that one, so I got the recordings to match up. But Island of Magic is so freaking good. I can't wait for y'all to see it. But yes, Johan is like this figure looming in the dark. He definitely has like a Joker presence where you don't fully feel like you ever completely understand him, which is intentional. So yes, but thank you all so much for joining me on this live stream. We spent 2 hours talking randomly about Monster and Pluto and also talking about everything else in between, but that's a lot of fun. So the next live stream, I'm going to put it in the chat. Next live stream will be June 30th. It'll be a Sunday, having there June 30th at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. And it's going to be about Kuroko's basketball. So I have a lot of shipping stuff that I'm going to talk about with that. I'm so excited. I'm going to try to do a manga reaction for Patreon exclusive before then, but we'll see. So yes, I thank you. Father's Day, I'm going to spend it with my dad tomorrow. So we're going to have a lovely Father's Day. It's going to be great. But thank you all so much. I'm so glad you all tuned in. This was a lot of fun. And now I'm going to hopefully not cry and hopefully do some fun things with Berserk. And all I'm going to say, since you all stayed this long, is that it's going to maybe involve some clown makeup. Maybe involve some clown makeup for volume 24. That's all I'll say for Berserk. So wish me luck. I'll post some pictures in the Discord on the Berserk channel for sure, in that graveyard of a channel where I post all my existential struggles. So thank you all so much. I'm looking forward to it. But I hope you all have a great rest of your day. So carry on, take care, and I'll see y'all again soon with more reactions. Bye.